What do you think?
I think we're dead meat. Real dead meat.
Go ahead and laugh, you guys. If I ever find a little bastards that did this, they're dead meat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. And today, we're going to be looking at Little Devil's The Birth, released in 1993. Little Devil's The Birth is another Gremlin ripoff, this time directed by George Pavlou, who is probably most well known for directing Rawhead Rex. Thankfully, like Munchies, I find Little Devil's The Birth to be an extremely fun and really well-made movie. The puppetry in this movie is surprisingly good and reminds me of some Full Moon films. And even though I like Munchies as a film better, I think the Little Devils as creatures are cooler. The story follows main character Ed, who lives in a house/apartment run by a woman named Miss Madison. His neighbor Lionel ends up finding some sort of mysterious goo which he uses to make statues which end up coming to life as our Little Devils. How many people will the Little Devils kill? Let's find out. Get to the kills. The movie opens with a title card. We then cut to a man running through a cemetery and eventually making it to a building where he then climbs down a hole. Down the hole appears to lead to some sort of temple, and eventually he finds a pool full of smoke. The man, who's revealed to be Lionel, begins reaching down into the pit and starts scooping out some sort of mysterious goo, which is pretty obviously just ketchup. After collecting all the goo he needs, Lionel gets on his bike and attempts to leave, but suddenly the security guard grabs him in a really awkward way.
Gotcha!
Lionel then escapes on his bike and eventually makes it back to his house/apartment. When he's on the way back up to his room, however, he ends up spilling some of the goo on the carpet, which pisses off Miss Madison. Back up in his apartment, we see he has a whole tub full of the mysterious goo. We then see a humanoid-like statue to which he's applying more of the mysterious goo to. While he's doing that, however, some of it ends up dripping onto his hand and then seeps through his skin, and even though it seems to hurt him at first, he quickly likes it. The next day, we see Ed stroll up and he spots Lionel doing something weird, and he starts to get a little suspicious. And as Ed goes up to open the front door, suddenly a car pulls up and two dudes come out. The two dudes walk up to Lionel and one of them asks him if he has their money. When he says he doesn't, the dude named George snatches his bag from his hand and the other dude attacks him and throws him to the ground. When George takes something out of the bag, it's revealed to be a whole bunch of sodas, and eventually he walks up to him and cracks it open right in his face. He then goes to cut his fingers off with some shears, but then Ed comes out and stops them.
Alright, hold it right there.
In order to save Lionel, he ends up just paying the fee for them, which turns out to only be $200, which I know that's still a lot, but honestly it could have been worse. And after that, Lionel heads back into the house/apartment and is called into Miss Madison's office. Miss Madison's pretty unhappy with the fact that he spilled stuff on a rug, since she seems to be a perfectionist. And she warns him that if it happens again, she's going to kick him out. When Ed then heads inside, Miss Madison invites him into her office and then starts to do some very weird things that I am not going to show here. A man simply referred to as Doc then walks up to the house/apartment and buzzes in for Ed to come down. Doc takes Ed to some sort of group of homeless people which he monitors the health for since he's a doctor. But all of a sudden, one of the homeless people just tackles Ed for no reason. Are we sure that man isn't Cujo? A woman named Lynn then runs up and manages to calm the man down. Lynn then introduces herself to Ed, and we find out that she has a very, interesting job. Ooh, Ed likey. After it's over, Ed meets up with Lynn in the back and asks if she wants a drink, but then it gets kinda awkward.
That was great.
Thanks.
Can I, get you something from the bar? Are you thirsty after all that?
I've got to go to my dressing room, take a shower, put some clothes on. I'm going to be a while.
Lynn then prepares to leave, but Ed tells her that he can wait. Couldn't really tell if she was excited or not. We cut back to that temple where we see the same security guard heading inside of it, where he manages to catch Lionel scooping up some of that goo. But he's suddenly attacked by a little devil who lights him on fire with his flamethrower, finally for our first kill of the film. Now, I've never put any behind the scenes on any of my kill counts yet, but I've managed to find a cool behind the scenes for this kill, so I'm going to show that.
See, I'm about to put you on fire. I'll tell you we're on fire. You move on action. Understand?
Okay, turn over.
Roll it. Speed. Okay, I'm about to put you on fire. You're on fire. Action. Move back, Louie. Back up. Back. There, that's good. Okay, fall. Whew. Is he okay? All right.
We then cut back to Ed and Lynn, who are now at the bar together, Lynn now sporting short hair. During their conversation, Ed eventually finds out that Lynn had actually read one of the books he wrote because Doc showed it to her, and he doesn't seem to be too happy about it.
He showed me a copy.
Oh. Did he? What a pal.
Well, actually, I found it to be extremely, inventive. Especially the bit with the midget.
Oh, that...
They start walking back home, and eventually Lynn reaches her house, and Ed asks a question, which honestly was a little too awkward to ask.
Fallen madly in love with me yet?
Not yet.
Wait, let me do it. Friend-zoned.
Okay, just, keep me informed. Tell me when you're madly in love with me. I'll wait. I don't need to rush things. I don't have to, come inside, or... I won't even try to kiss you.
Someone should call the police. Back with Lionel, a giant head statue suddenly begins to come to life as his eyes begin to open, and when Lionel goes to grab it, it seems to possess him. Ed heads back into his apartment, and I guess out of being upset for being rejected, he turns on his boombox and grabs some beer. Back with Lionel, he pulls out a new little devil from the goo. As Miss Madison is heading up the stairs, she notices a hell lot of more stains on her carpet. Miss Madison heads into Lionel's room and finds it all messed up and dirty from all the experiments he's been doing while the little devils watch her. She heads over and confronts Lionel and reaches her limit and evicts him. Back with Ed, he starts jumping around and dancing on the table before noticing one of the little devils climbing down the window. Miss Madison then visits Ed and starts acting all gross, but when he's not interested, she threatens to evict him. Miss Madison heads back into her room to find it all smoky in there thanks to the little devils. A couple of gremlin-y-like scares begin happening, seeing the little devil's red eyes, as well as turning the TV on. Eventually, they full-on attack, with one little devil spraying Miss Madison in the face with some sort of acidic-like spray. Hearing the commotion, Ed heads downstairs to a room, but finally Miss Madison falls over dead for our second kill of the movie. Ed manages to get the door open, but before he can do anything, one of the little devils sprays him with some of that smoke, which knocks him out. The next morning, Doc and Lynn find Ed and bring him back to his apartment. He tries to explain to them what happened, but can't really remember, so Doc tells Lynn to stay there and take care of him. Ed then heads back down to Miss Madison's room, but finds it all clean like nothing happened. Now even more suspicious, Ed heads over to Lionel's room, and in a trash bag outside his door, he finds some of that soda seen earlier. Ed knocks on the door a few times before Lionel finally opens it. Ed tells Lionel that there's been some water dripping from his ceiling, and because he lives right above him, he can only figure it's coming from his room. When Lionel then starts walking away from him, Ed stops the door from closing and lets himself in. Ed's interested with all the equipment he has and eventually sees all the goo in the bathtub, and Lionel passes it off that he simply makes statues with it. Ed then sees one of the statues and recognizes it as the same creature he saw crawling down his window last night. Lionel then asks him if he had told anybody about this dream, and he tells him that all he told was his friends, but he quickly notices that Lionel's acting a little strange about it, so he nopes out of there. As he's leaving, however, Lionel tells him to be careful. When Ed gets outside of the room, he finds Lynn waiting for him, and then he snatches some of the soda because he thinks it could be useful. Later that night, one of the little devils who's walking around outside ends up getting caught in a trap set up by some of those homeless people from earlier. He brings it to the rest of the group thinking it's just a normal animal inside, but when they open it up, they see the little devil, and suddenly 2 more arrive. The next morning, Doc finds all the homeless people dead, and I counted 9 here, and then he watches 1 more die. Later that night, Lionel gets a knock at the door from George and Jason, the dudes from the beginning of the movie. Once again, they're looking for their money, and George tells Lionel to bring it to this address at midnight. However, it looks like they just pissed off all the little devils. Meanwhile, downstairs with Ed and Lynn, while Lynn is trying to read one of his books, they both see more of the little devils start climbing down the windows again. They look out the window to see the little devils climbing in the back of George's car. When Ed and Lynn get to the house, Jason walks out the door, and so they kiss each other to hide their faces, which I think Ed just did that on purpose. And while Jason is trying to fix the car, one of the little devils runs over and grabs a can of gasoline. The little devil then opens it and starts pouring it all over the ground. And while George is getting busy with two of his girls, a little devil appears and shoots some sort of projectile weapon into his forehead, which kills him. Wait a second. What other mini monster shoots people with a projectile weapon? I just don't know. Let's just get back to the kill count. Jason, who heard the girl screaming, quickly grabs a gun, and when he sees Ed and Len, he assumes they did something, so he starts shooting at them. However, the little devil then lights the gasoline trail on fire, and eventually Jason catches on fire, and because of the torch next to him, it causes the truck to explode. When Ed and Len then make it back to the house/apartment, Ed says he's gonna go in and confront Lionel, but tells Len to stay outside. Not before they share a kiss, however. When Ed heads back up to Lionel's room, he finds it dark and it seems like nobody's in there, but then we actually get a pretty good scare.
Lionel, I don't want to hurt you. Alright?
Lionel attacks Ed with a knife and nearly manages to kill him, but Len arrives at the last minute and manages to knock him unconscious. But they're then attacked by all the little devils. In order to survive, they play it off like they accidentally knocked Lionel unconscious, and then they send one of them to give a note to Doc to get him over here to help. With Doc, the little devils arrive, and he doesn't act shocked or scared. The little devil then hands him the note, and he reads it. Doc arrives at the house/apartment and checks on Lionel and realizes that he has a concussion and he's going to need some medication from back at his office, so they send more of the little devils to go get it. We then get a short gremlin-y-like scene where we see all the little devils playing with random stuff at the office. The three then think of a plan to fight back against the little devils. Doc kicks one out the window, Len knocks another one into a trash can, and finally, Ed stabs one of them. However, the head statue starts alerting the other little devils to return to the area. They then head over to a computer to see if they can find out where the little devils are coming from. On the computer, they find a log Lionel had made and find out that soda from earlier called Kiddo Cola can apparently break down the mud that creates the little devils. They then try to get the thing that possessed Lionel at the beginning of the movie out, and they pour some of the soda down his throat, which manages to free him from the possession. When he's free from the possession, he apologizes to everyone for what's going on. One of the little devils then arrives and attacks them, shooting a projectile at them, but they manage to dodge it. Lionel then grabs one of the sodas and pours it all over the little devil, causing it to melt away, and I'm going to count that as a separate little devil count. Ed grabs another soda and walks over to the little devil who's stabbed with a knife and pours the soda all over it, causing it to melt away. They then head over to the little devil trapped in the trash can and pour more soda in there, killing another one. They then realize they only have 2 more cans of soda left, so Ed and Lionel head down to Ed's apartment to get the rest that they had taken earlier. They then load the rest into some sort of bottle that can spray. However, they're then attacked by a little devil who sprays some acid at them. They then load up the soda and spray it at the little devil, killing another one. Back upstairs, a little devil appears and Doc shoves Len into a closet to keep her safe. Back downstairs, Ed and Lionel are attacked by another little devil, this one wielding a freaking machine gun. Back upstairs, Doc is attacked by another little devil who sprays some acid in his face, but then he falls backwards into the goo. Back downstairs, Ed is nearly killed by the little devil, but Lionel manages to save him by pouring some more soda on him for our 5th little devil kill. Len then heads out of the closet and is attacked by another little devil, but manages to kill it by pouring more soda on it. However, the last little devil then attacks Len, but Ed and Lionel arrive back upstairs and spray more soda at it, killing it. Lionel then heads over and begins crushing the head. Well, the movie should be over now, right?
We've taken the physical form away from the intelligence. There's nothing for it to use now.
Yep, because Doc fell in the goo earlier, it allowed the demon to have a new vessel since the head was destroyed. Honestly, I really like this creature design. The demon then uses some kind of power that forces Len to come towards him, and when Ed tries to stop him, he gets electrocuted and knocked unconscious. When Ed wakes up, Lionel tells him that the demon took Len. They then take a large tank full of the soda and set out to find the demon. Ed and Lionel then make it back to the temple and head down, and they find the demon inside the goo. When Ed goes to spray the demon, however, the demon begins acting like Doc and manages to nearly manipulate Ed. Ed is able to free himself from it, however, and sprays the demon down, managing to kill it. Ed is then reunited with Doc, and the movie ends with the two drinking together. How many people did the little devils kill? Let's find out. Get to the note. What? 14 people died in the Little Devil's The Birth. 8 of them were male, 3 were female, and 3 were unknown bodies. Alongside that, we had 8 Little Devils. Golden Chainsaw has a couple of options, but I'll give it to George. I just like the suddenness of the projectile going into his forehead, and it has good effects as well. And Don Machete for worst kill goes to all the homeless people, since it was all off screen. And that's it. Little Devil's Breath came out in 1993, and it is my second favorite actual Gremlin ripoff. Next time, we'll be continuing the Wishmaster franchise with Wishmaster 2, Evil Never Dies. But until then, I'm Hardcore Fan. See you next time.